everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guests and I each pick a film related in some shape or form, and hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll have two films to go check out. And I'm pretty confident you'll have two recommendations from this episode. And joining me, as always, every month is my buddy Luke. Luke, thank you so much for coming on.
Always a pleasure being here, Shane.
Absolutely. And we are doing a double dose of early Spielberg that are both
Mhm.
cat and mouse games in their own way, out in kind of, the heartland of America. And first up, we have the 1971 television film Duel, which is wild to me that this was a TV movie.
Yep.
Pretty damn good TV movie. And then we'll have the Sugarland Express. But let's get started with Duel, which is about a business commuter who is pursued and terrorized by a malevolent driver of a massive tractor trailer. But Luke, what are your general thoughts on Duel?
I really enjoyed myself with that movie. I thought it was. So I watched Sugarland Express first, and this one was the second movie, right? And
Mm,
I'll say this now. If you were to ask me, oh, after finishing Sugarland Express, would you have guessed this director would become probably like the best director ever? I would say probably not, even though
mm,
they're like it's a great movie. But after Duel, I actually would be more inclined because the story is gripping. It's simple. It works.
mm.
It's the original Fast and Furious. So and what I really admired about this movie is like how simple of a premise it is, but how logical that movie is. Like, I think that's what like nowadays we don't get much of, meaning the guy who is being, on the hunt or like, the cat and mouse game with this like big, massive fucking, truck. He does everything right. He tries to take over, doesn't happen. He tries to slow down and just let him be, doesn't happen. He hides, nothing works for this dude. He tries to like, he tries everything. So like, and then yeah, like really liked like this movie. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, what's crazy is this is the screenplays by Richard Matheson,
Mm-hmm.
who for those who don't know, he wrote I Am Legend, the
Damn.
novella, and which is one of my favorite books of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a tight this is a tight screenplay because like this is 90 minutes and it has really well done set pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't overstay its welcome at any of them.
Nope.
It moves on and delivers such a thrilling ride. And for probably for like $2, this
Mm-hmm.
movie was made for. And it was a made for TV movie, but the amount of artistry in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the directing, which, like you mentioned, Luke, like Steven Spielberg really showed like this is a precursor to Jaws.
Exactly. Like it.
And instead of a giant shark, it's a giant truck. And you have I think Dennis Weaver does a really fine job of being
Mm-hmm.
like our anchor character. Because like
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, do any of the other characters in this movie really matter that much? No.
No.
It's our main character. We have to at least empathize for him on some level. We've
Mm-hmm.
all been there. It's like I was stuck behind a Tesla going 50 miles an hour on the highway yesterday on my way to work.
Boo.
And it's a 65-mile-an-hour highway. To
Mm-hmm.
find when I passed them, they were sitting there texting on their phone. And it's just like we all have those moments where it's just like stuck behind somebody on the highway. You go to pass them. And it just so happens this time this trucker had some road rage. And
Yep.
basically the Michael Jordan meme, I took that personally and
Yes.
turned it into a whole entire thriller. And well, and it starts so simple because it's
Mm-hmm.
just you have David, our main character, he passes the truck,
Mm-hmm.
and then you feel this truck like boom by you, and it passes you.
Yep.
and then he tries to pass and it sways. And like at one point, him waving him along into an oncoming car, you're just
Yeah.
like, oh shit, things are not okay in this situation. And like that's the moment where you start realizing, oh, this is something else.
Mm-hmm. No, I love how Spielberg lets us feel the weight of the massive truck. Like the
Hmm.
way he shots all those scenes, you can feel the extraordinary power mixed with like an insane amount of weight of that vehicle just coming after you. And again, like as you mentioned, this is a precursor to Jaws. This is two guys, two big egos, two macho, men, or wannabe macho men. Um, wanna be a macho, yeah. And like basically where they are trying to prove to each other, no, I'm the bigger dog, no, 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 I'm the. And then even when he pulls, I'm like, you know what, you can be the bigger dog, you have the bigger car, I don't care. And that's too late. Like
Hmm.
it's such a, again, it's simple. Like we talk about a runtime, it's only 90 minutes. Originally, you probably noticed, originally it was supposed to, it was only about 70 minutes. Only when Steven Spielberg became Steven Spielberg, like they basically made him do like it was like shortly after, but basically they made him do like some additional scenes. So like the scene with the bus driver with the kids, that's an addition after the fact, so they can like like release it in the cinemas. There was a scene with a phone call with his wife that was also like after the fact because yeah, apparently, originally it's really just 70 so minutes or even leaner cut, believe it or not.
Hmm.
And I want to say one thing about because I watched it on 4K I bought the 4K. I don't know if this makes any difference to anybody, but the 4K hasn't been upscaled or
Hmm.
I don't know, it hasn't been transferred manually by people. This is an AI transfer.
Okay.
And I did wonder, like even while watching on my nice setup, I was like, this 4K seems nice, but I don't think it's adding, like I think like Blu-ray would have been fine enough as well. And then when I read it, I was like, oh, that makes sense. So just for people out there who are, I think Blu-ray will be probably fine because this is just an AI job. And I think it showed in a couple of scenes, but the movie
Hmm.
looked pristine. Like I'll say the movie, it doesn't look like, 71. It looks very nice, very crisp.
Now, this is more for Luke because you all can't see this, but I
Oh,
have
nice.
a nice little Steven Spielberg Blu-ray collection that
Mm-hmm.
has Duel and Sugarland Express in it. And
Cool.
this looks real nice for from a film from that era.
Yep.
For sure, especially when that was meant for a TV.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would expect this to look like crap. It was a TV movie from the
Mm-hmm.
70s, at this point. But no, and it's interesting that you brought up those two set pieces because like that bus set piece, and you just see the truck at the end of the tunnel, and you're
Oh
just
yeah,
like,
just
oh no. Yeah,
waiting, like lurking in shadows, and like even there's a shot where like there's the music cue and then like the lights turn on. So again, it is Jaws like. It
yeah,
genuinely is kind of like but instead of a shark, instead of a living beast, he's a big mechanical beast. He's just warning you to like there's another commentary by Spielberg that said the way I interpret the story because the truck has many license plates right
yeah.
on it on the front that so he always believed those were his previous victims so and he would kill the people and like obviously mashed up the cars and took that as like souvenir. So like and I'm like that's fascinating.
That's effed up.
Yeah, yeah,
But like it adds that level of detail and like that whole sequence where he's like ramming the phone booth and
yeah.
all those like little glass houses and stuff like that. It's just like that's intense.
Mm-hmm.
And you have that one sequence where David goes in that diner and
Mm-hmm.
just the paranoia
Yep.
mounting and mounting, and he gets into that fight. And it just Spielberg knows how to build tension.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is 100% like this is basically like his application to do Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Like yeah, this is a
I could
TV
do this.
movie. as you
Mhm,
mentioned, this is a TV movie, and famously, Spielberg, obviously, he started in TV, doing a lot of TV shows and TV movies, and he famously said, "When I was younger, I despised it, but now, like when he grew up, he's like, this actually made me more prepared for the director I would become because that made him be more efficient, that made him be
mhm,
more like more prepped for every other job." So like he actually now looks at this era of his life very fondly, that this gave him the tools and the mindset to actually become the Spielberg we know today. But yeah, the diner scene, exactly to your point, the sudden narration, because this movie is also very quiet, and then suddenly we have the narration of that, and like he's thinking about what's, oh, this guy, but maybe it's not this, and it like and it kind of works. Like it took me it took me out for like a minute. I'm like, oh, we're doing narration like half an hour into the movie, but
mhm,
it kind of works because again, otherwise this movie is quiet.
mhm,
Besides like sound effects and besides like the score, by the way, be also great.
mhm.
This movie, like there's little to no dialogue because obviously there's just one man, and
Yeah.
the we don't really see the driver of the mechanical beast. So most of the time there's like little to no dialogue.
Well, and I appreciate that Spielberg doesn't try to artificially have him talk more.
In original
'Cause-
screenplay, apparently his wife was supposed to be as a passenger to fill those voids, to fill those like scenes,
Mm,
so it would be as wouldn't be as quiet. But apparently he shut it down. He's like, no, I don't think that would work. So they didn't go with it, which is good decision.
yes, simple is better.
Yes.
And I'm sure that they did that voiceover in the diner because this is a TV movie.
Yes.
But like it does work because it's like you're starting to get that paranoia that's mounting. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think they make some interesting choices to bring this film to a climax.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, does it come to a climax. And then it ends because this is a this is a movie from the early 70s, and it's just like, what?
How did you
Story's
like the
over.
ending? How did you like the final shot, the final ending, like and the credits roll? How did you like that? What did you
I think
think?
it's fitting because
Mm-hmm.
like it's one of those kinds of things where it's just like there's something to appreciate of like films back then where it's just like, well, story's over, folks.
Yep.
Get out of
Go home.
here.
Go home. Yep.
Turn off your TVs. Because like it ends.
Mm-hmm.
Like it ends. That's we come to the conflict is over. It is time to like David to let out and that's it. Like how does he get back to anywhere? We'll
Yep.
figure it out, but we don't need to see that. But I feel like in a film today, we would have seen him like staggering back into like a diner or something. It's just like we don't need it.
Or just
Keep
like
it.
calling the cops, and we see like a cops coming around, or maybe even like coming back to his wife. Oh, like, oh, I had a hell of a day. Just let.
Yeah, so like, we don't need that. But
Exactly.
like it's funny because I was talking to Luke before we were recording about this really clunky documentary that I did not enjoy, which I didn't mention this. It had the perfect ending shot, and then
Mm-hmm.
proceeded to put another scene in. I'm like, so the complete opposite
Yeah.
of like this film. It's it's like it's kind of funny because it's very similar to a shot towards the end of Tremors.
Oh yeah.
Except then Tremors does one extra scene because there's the like more human
Mm-hmm.
threads that needed to close up. But this didn't have any of that extra stuff because like this whole entire film was about this conflict between David and this truck driver. Um Truck comes to a horrible demise, and they're just
Yep.
like, show's over, folks.
And it really reminded me of like that like that sudden ending almost. Like it really reminded me of like American Werewolf in London, because that's the same thing, and I love those movies that just like as you said, narrative is over, the main conflict is resolved. We don't need an extra second, so roll the credits, go
Yep.
home, folks. Nothing to see. And I admire the balls of like like sometimes that's the story we want to tell. Yes, sure, we can do extra 5 minutes of like put a nice bow on
Mhm.
everything and wrap it up
Yep.
nicely. But you know what? Fuck it. It's a 70s end. Like, cut it, print it. This needs to be on TV soon.
Exactly. And we can appreciate that. But
Mhm.
Luke, do you have any other thoughts on Duel?
No, I think the last thought. I think both of us are pretty much saying it's still worth checking out, despite this being only TV movie. It's still definitely worth checking out for any Spielberg, not even Spielberg fan, just for a fan of great 70s cinema.
Well, yeah, this is a great thriller, period.
Yes.
So, like, it's a
Mhm.
really well done film, and this is what, 54 years old at
Insane.
this point, and it still holds up.
Yep.
It's, dare I say, as Luke said, this was the original Fast and Furious. This is better than any of them. Uh,
100%.
you heard it here. Um, but let's fast forward just a few years to 1974. We have the Sugarland Express. And this film is about a woman attempts to reunite her family by helping her husband escape prison and together kidnapping their son. But things don't go as planned when they
Mhm.
are forced to take a police hostage on the road. Um, I wouldn't have wrote that sentence that way. Uh, but this is indeed directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Goldie Hawn, Ben Johnson, Michael Sachs, and William Atherton.
Mhm.
80s asshole William Atherton.
Yep.
um, from both Ghostbusters and Die Hard. But Luke, what are your general thoughts on the Sugarland Express?
I really enjoyed it. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting what I got.
Mhm.
Let me put it this way. But I think this movie is first theatrical Spielberg. This is his first ever like theatrical, and it's beautiful. It's shot beautifully. There's the camera, like especially when the camera moves in the car, and we see like there's a shot where we see it kind of turn around, so we can see the other car next to them, and it just kind of does this almost like 360 shot. I was like, that's fucking cool, and like so we see like some genius being there, and I think I've written something like in my letterbox review for a first 90 minutes of this movie it's great, and for the last 20 minutes it's excellent, because I this movie definitely like starts a bit slow for me, but
Mhm.
the way it finishes and the last shot, again we were talking about the last shot, that is kind of almost haunting in a way. It's almost melancholic in a way, and it stays with you, even though like nothing like drastic happens. It's just like it makes you reflect on what we just been through, and like I think this is the movie I will appreciate more on a like further like second, third rewatch. What about you? What do you think?
So this is my second time watching this. The
Mm-hmm.
first time I watched this was for my Spielberg series,
Mm-hmm.
and I was really impressed by this film from being a like first time theatrical
Mm-hmm.
directorial effort from Spielberg. I do like Duel more,
Yeah.
but this obviously adds in a lot more color and layers to
Mm-hmm.
the experience. And I think starting off like big broad strokes thematically, this is a very interesting film to watch in today's context in American society, as there is a thread here of class warfare.
Yep.
Of you have these two people who probably didn't have a snowball's chance in hell
Mm-hmm.
in making it,
Mm-hmm.
because I think you can tell that both Lugene and Clovis, which also Clovis is A plus naming of a movie character right there.
Yes.
It's you don't need to even know anything about Clovis. You know Clovis based
Mm-hmm.
off of the fact that his name is Clovis.
Mm-hmm.
You know that they came from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know they've probably struggled their whole lives,
Mm-hmm.
and that they should never have had this child together. You can definitely tell that like they were probably the kind of couple that had this child as an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can feel all of that from context. And the fact that their child is taken away from them and given to this rich old couple says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that is this underlying element throughout this whole entire film. And it's that high class elitist,
Mm-hmm.
like they will be better parents, despite the fact that like they're old couple.
Yeah.
It's like they're gonna be better parents than these two young people because they have more money
They can
and
afford it.
they can afford it,
Yeah.
which in this economy, but like it's one of those kinds of things where it's like there's that class warfare here, and I think that really reinforces the cult following, the what am I looking for? The this whole entire legend that starts
Mm-hmm.
building about Lou Jean and Clovis, and why like they have that whole entire following of that whole small town supporting
That's
them.
that is what I was gonna bring up because when you said, how like, how accurate is it even today for today's America, I thought you're gonna go with like a media route. Like I thought like, how
Oh,
even when
and
we
on top of that,
yes. Because like you can like that's like what are you talking about? Absolutely correct. Like, no there's no argument here. I picked up on the media sensitively the word I can pronounce being like pretty much from like overnight like almost like these folk heroes even though they
yes,
shouldn't be, right? And how there's the towards the end they are the news van is like, oh, would you mind doing exclusive interview with us? And they shoot at the van, the police just shoot the tires, the van
yeah.
just collapses, and it's like, oh, who the fuck cares if these news people survived? We have these two to chase. I'm like, damn, 70s were fucking harsh.
Well, and you brought up like they turn into these folk heroes and they really shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's the complexity about this film because
Yep.
there's tons of people in the heartland of America that says would stick up for them
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, we
say,
see the proceedings, right? Like, like
yeah,
how they try to go through the town. They try to skew them from the town, and then they're like, no, 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 we're going through the town. And then like suddenly they discover, oh, many people are in our corner. They're giving them gifts, the pig,
yeah.
the like everything, like money, like I'm like, damn, like this is insane.
Well, and like, do I think that Lou Jean and Clovis are ready to be parents?
Probably not.
Probably not. But it also brings up the thought of who's to say somebody doesn't deserve to have their child?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And obviously Clovis is in prison.
Yep.
So like he shouldn't be having a child. He shouldn't be parenting a child because he's in prison. But
Mm-hmm.
like there's a complexity there. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it hits at a divide in America that this film and like they represent a group of people that are forgotten
Mm-hmm.
and underrepresented. And I think that's an interesting element to this and also like the media exacerbating it.
Mm-hmm. Like in a weird way, it reminded me of Deliverance. We both of us rewatched, or you rewatched, I watched
Yeah.
for the first time a couple of months ago, because there is like an element. Like first of all, the movie opens up with kind of banjo-like music, and I'm like, that sounds like Deliverance. And then like we see the again, as you say, the class struggle. Like we see Clovis, great name. We see him being very simple man, right? And he
Mm,
can kind of tell it's Goldie Hawn, who is by the way excellent in this movie. Like I
yes.
don't think many people really appreciate her acting in this movie. You
No.
can kind of tell she is the brains for both of them, really, in this operation.
Yes.
And even though she can sometimes be too much, you can tell she understands. Like, she says, "Oh yeah, after this is all over, we're gonna, I want to settle down. I want to, you know, be proper." And I think you can tell, even in that moment, she doesn't believe that it will ever be like that. Like, she
Yeah.
knows there's no going back after what they've done, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's like, so that's kind of like also like, remind me of that, of like the 70s rawness between, like, the lower class and the higher class, like in Deliverance, what they was commenting on as well.
Well, and yes, Goldie Hawn is fantastic in this.
Yes.
She's so charismatic. She's
Mm-hmm.
magnetic,
Mm-hmm.
and she you could definitely tell like they're beyond the point of no return.
Yep.
And they're gonna run off to Mexico
Mm-hmm.
after this and leave their whole entire lives behind
Mm-hmm.
because that's how much getting her child means to her. And you can get behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can imagine being a parent and being like, I would literally do anything for my child.
Yeah.
And this film hits on that deep primal feeling of like this is what I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is I think the inclusion of the police officer played by Michael Sachs is that generally as a police officer, they're criminals. Your job's to
Yeah.
stop them.
Yeah.
This humanizes
Mm-hmm.
the situation
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't see like obviously he's still trying to do his job in ways,
Mm-hmm.
but he sees them as people. And it gets a lot harder to be like you have these like phantom snipers that set up throughout the film that are like
Yep.
their whole entire job is I don't care about these people. My job is to shoot them.
Yes.
But the police officer being with them see like it's the humanizing of them
Mm-hmm.
where it's he struggles to be able to do what he quote unquote has to do because he sees them as people.
And you can
And
tell, and we can discuss how much of that is, like something like Stockholm syndrome,
yeah.
right? How much
Mhm.
is that, like, because, eventually you will end up with your kidnappers, you will spend some time. You might
Yeah.
end up, you might, that is literally, that's why it's called Stockholm syndrome. So it's like, is it part of that, and part of, he understands they are actually just people and not bad guys? Like, in a in a weird sense. And that's
Yeah.
what I find very complex about his character, how he starts like defending them towards the end
Yeah.
as well.
Hmm. Well, and I think one of the most important pieces of this film is Captain Tanner,
Hmm.
which, God, throwing a good old fashioned Ben Johnson performance, and I love it. Because,
Yep.
like, I appreciate it because, like, I saw him a lot popping up in a lot of those John Ford films.
Hmm.
And I already knew him from Shane,
Hmm.
my namesake.
Yes.
And obviously, he won an Oscar for The Last Picture Show, which
Hmm.
he's so good in that.
He is.
So good in that. Here, he he is the balance
Hmm.
because he realizes that they are human beings, but he also realizes that they are criminals and
Yep.
he needs to stop them in some way. And he's the one who's like, we don't need to shoot them
Hmm.
at this point.
Hmm.
We haven't gotten to that point yet. He's a it's interesting in today's context being like, he's a good cop.
Yep.
Because ACAB. Um, and it's like he's somebody who reasonably is trying to do his job
Hmm.
while also protecting people and realizing that these are human beings involved.
Yeah.
And Ben Johnson just brings that presence because he's such a talented veteran actor. I love a good character actor performance in a movie, and he definitely is. He's the Harvey Keitel of Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
He's the. It's like you have that veteran policeman who's been around the road quite a
Yeah.
few times and knows that like this is what we have to do here. And there's very polarizing perspectives in this film, and he's kind of the that in the middle, like he gets mad at those guys who go all vigilante and shoot up
Oh
that
yeah.
car dealership, which that scene is intense
It
and
was.
wild. And he's like, we're trying to help you, Captain. And he's just like, and he arrests them. And he
Hmm.
should.
Yep.
It's
No,
like,
yeah,
we
like
don't
he
want your
doesn't
help.
take Yeah, he doesn't take any fucks. He give any shits. Like he just tries to do his job. He just tries to
Yep.
do what he thinks is the best thing to do at that situation. And like
Mhm.
he, as you said, like he's the like a he tries to balance the scales. So really, he tries to be the like justice is blind. He tries very hard to uphold that standard, but they are making it difficult for him.
Mhm.
And the media circus is also making it difficult for him from the other side.
Yeah.
That's why I think it was him who shot the
Yeah.
van, wasn't he? Yep. Yeah. So it's like yeah, and now can you imagine that scene in today's movie? Probably would not have happened. That no.
No. Well, and this is very much a 70s movie,
100%.
which it's interesting because a lot of people accuse Spielberg and Lucas of killing the 70s movie
Mm,
because of
interesting.
Star Wars
So
and
yeah,
Indiana
blockbusters.
Jones
Yeah.
and creating the blockbusters. But like Spielberg, this is his roots.
Yep.
And it was George Lucas's roots too, with like American Graffiti and stuff
Hmm.
like that. It's just that George Lucas, I don't think George Lucas is the strongest director. Um,
I think he's not as strong as like a storyteller. I think director is fine. A storyteller,
I think the issue is he has big ideas.
yes,
I
he's
think
ideas man.
he's the ideas man. I think somebody else needs to put them into action.
Yeah.
But like Spielberg obviously is one of the greatest storytellers ever.
Yes.
And I think basically any kind of story you can put in his hands and he can make it work.
Hmm.
And this is a very 70s feeling film
Oh yeah.
because from like this Spielberg was part of the story.
Hmm.
He didn't write the screenplay to this, but like this feels like a very 70s screenplay because it deals in there's complicated issues here.
Hmm.
There's complex layers to this story, and it's simple. It would be simple to say this is a Bonnie and Clyde
Yeah.
ripoff or
Hmm.
like follow up, but
Hmm.
like it's not the same thing.
Nope.
Like Bonnie and Clyde were on a like a crime spree, and doing that for the thrill of it. There, and I think this is what I think makes it a Spielberg film
Hmm.
is that there's a love for their child
Yeah.
at the heart of this, and that's
Hmm.
a driving force. I think much stronger for Lou Jean. I think Clovis is kind of just on the ride for this,
Again,
and like
we know who
and the
wears pants in a relationship there. Yes.
well, and he's like getting out of prison,
Yeah.
which also I hate William Atherton so much because of Ghostbusters and Die Hard, and Clovis isn't much better either, and
Hmm.
he just plays that character so perfectly. But
Hmm.
no, this is like that car chase towards beginning of the film that has fun comedic moments because like this
Hmm.
is a darkly funny film, like the old couple,
Yeah, I was gonna the old couple.
hilarious.
Yes.
But like this is so well shot. These
Mm.
car chases, the action, like you see the Spielberg here, and you're just like, he knows what he's doing.
Again, like director, leave it up to directors like him to show you the scope of things and the scale. There
Yep.
are many just establishing shots where he's utilizing the entire landscape, where we see like like a sunrise and sunset, and you see the like just a road and like desert and nothing else, and it
Mm,
looks beautiful. Again, the final shot, just something happens, and then he's processing all the police officer is processing all the emotions, and it's set against like the sun as the
yes.
credits roll. It makes you feel so many feelings with him,
Mm,
and that's why I said like if the first 90 minutes of this movie were very very good to great, the last 20 is when when the things are starting to near their
yep.
inevitable end. That's where the excellence truly begins, and I genuinely believe, I definitely want to buy this on, Blu-ray or 4K and rewatch it at some point because I genuinely
Mm,
think on the next rewatch it's gonna go up even higher because this movie, the last shot is just it's melancholic, it's kind of
mm,
sad, it's kind of like so many different complicated emotions. One of the only movies, by the way, that of Spielberg's, I mean, that doesn't end on a high note or like a
Yeah.
happy note. So that's also something like he doesn't do much or much often. And if I'm not mistaken, this is his first collaboration with John Williams.
Mhm.
If I'm not mistaken, this is the
Score's
first
great.
time. Well, yes.
It's John Williams.
And
Also, for
again,
Luke's
yeah.
sake, the
Mm-hmm.
the horizon, it's at the
Yes.
bottom of the frame.
Yeah.
And it's
And
just
again, Goldie Hawn, man, like she for an actress that's been around for 5 decades, she
mm,
didn't do that many movies, and I just wish she would
yeah.
have. But obviously, like she just was happy with her life, so she's like, I'm chilling. No, she's great. Like she, yeah,
I'm just gonna keep showing the horizon at the top of the frame.
yep,
It passes the test, everybody. Um, for those who have seen The Fablemans or
yes.
know of Steven Spielberg's experience with
Talk about the last shot of the movie of the Fablemans as well. Just talk about it. Whoop.
yeah.
Oh no, yeah, that's
And it is a very and it's very interesting that the final shot of this is with two specific characters who you wouldn't expect the final shots of the movie to be with.
yes, yeah.
And I think it's important that Ben Johnson's character is part of that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because he has been the one trying to keep this all balanced this whole entire time.
Yeah.
And un- this is the 70s ness of it, which the ending is melancholic because it is the 70s of it.
Mm-hmm.
He did keep the status quo.
Yeah, he did.
And for better for worse. And it's also wild that she did get her child back
Yep.
at
It
some point.
yeah, yeah. Like again, it is based this movie is based on true stories.
Yeah,
The beginning of that, like the prison thing did not happen. She did not have to break him out of the prison. Like, nothing like that happened. They kind of embellished it a bit, but the chase and all of it actually happened. So, yeah. And if I don't know if she's still alive, to be honest, like some 50 something years later. But yeah.
she could be
Yeah,
because
no,
she
yeah.
was probably like early 20s.
So yeah, she's probably like 70 something now. Yeah. No, but like genuinely, like I think we both agreed like the Duel is slightly better than Sugarland Express, or we enjoyed it slightly more. However, I genuinely would recommend both because like this movie just like it's so much more complex and it gives me something to think about, and I genuinely will buy it on Blu-ray 4K and cannot wait to rewatch it.
Absolutely. But that is indeed a double dose of some early Spielberg here
Hmm.
on this episode of the Wasteland Retrospective. But Luke, thank you as always for always coming on and chatting movies with me.
Anytime, anytime, Shane.
And thank all of you for listening. What's your favorite Spielberg film? Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. But also make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We have a lot of great content over on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network, whether we're talking about film or television or sports or music, physical media or comics, or, just talking about like with Luke. So we're always looking for collaborators too. So if you want to come on any of these shows, let us know. And if you like our logo, check out HiFlyer Creative for all your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPM Crew Podcasting Network.